Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we have an interesting game between Wei Ji versus Esipenko, who's playing with the white pieces. Let's analyze this game. This is round 7, if I am not mistaken, of the FIDE candidates. So the game starts with d4, e5, knight f3, and knight f6, which is known as the Petrov's defense. Here, white can take the pawn, black can take the pawn, and this is kind of a drawish game. d4, but we're gonna get an interesting position. So knight takes on e4, queen to e2. Queen to e2 is suboptimal. Yeah, you don't want to play queen to e2 here. Instead, you can take, here. You can take this pawn with the knight. The game continues. But okay, queen e2 is not such a bad move anyway. d5. Now knight takes on e5. Bishop to e7. Getting out of, also protecting the king. Preparing to castle, right? Now f3 is supposed to be the first novelty of the game. Normally the knight develops to d2, for example, and now once black trades, the game continues. But okay, f3, I don't know why this hasn't been played before, at least in the master database. Okay, the game continues. Knight to d6, knight to c3, knight to f5, queen to f2, keeping an eye on the pawn, castles. Then bishop to f4, f6, kicking out the knight, knight to d3, knight to c6, developing the other knight, knight to e2, keeping an eye on the pawn, right? So this is very, very strategical. Okay, knight to b4, jumping in, hitting this, threatening the fork. So the knight takes, bishop takes on b4, c3, bishop has to go back. Bishop to d2 is the first mistake of the game. So here, the problem is this king is in the middle of the board. What you have to do is just castle. Yeah, castle, and it's completely fine. The game will continue. Instead, after bishop to d2, it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit this file with the queen. King has to step aside, but the pieces are now super weird. Yeah, how do you get anywhere with their pieces with white? So queen to a4, giving a check. King to c1, b5. Now knight to f4, c5, seizing the initiative. Now it's also preparing to open up the position on the c file, probably on the b file. Okay, bishop to d3, c takes on d4, bishop to c2, queen to a6. Now c takes on d4, bishop d7, developing, keeping also an eye on the pawn. Rook to c8, bishop to d3. A lot of improvement moves, right? Now rook to c4 is supposed to be an inaccuracy, but the most amazing thing about it is later, after we get knight to e2, now this is a brilliancy, right? So it's the funny thing about computers. Here, if they take back, let's assume instead of knight to e7, okay, g4, and this was playing the game, but if they take back, they take this rook. Now we can just take here, instead with the b pawn, with the d pawn, it's much better. Knight to g3, bishop takes on g3, and now you're opening up the diagonal for this bishop, hitting the king. Bishop to f5, king c1, queen a4, threatening to checkmate next. So you have a lot of piece initiative, right? You have the control of the game with black. Okay, knight to e2 was playing the game. Knight to e7, g4, and the best move in the position, instead of going g4 or taking, is to play a3. And a3, I was thinking about it. I also put arrows to remind myself, okay, what is it doing? Probably giving some space to the king, but maybe even a deeper concept is, once they put the knight here, maybe the idea is to get the knight over to b4, right? Hitting this bishop, hitting all of these squares. So you're also doing this with white, a3. That's why it's a top engine move. Okay, that doesn't happen in the game. After g4, rook f to c8. And again, we have another brilliant move here. You keep hanging the rook, or you keep offering the rook. We can push b4. b4, and then b3, let's say, trying to provoke some weaknesses. Okay, now we can push f5. The game will continue. Here you're just crushing through the board. Okay, after rook f to c8, we get h4. Again, the computer insists on playing this, something like a3, knight c6. Okay, we get h4, b4 anyway, b3, bishop to b5, and now they definitely have to take, or they kind of have to take, right? So b takes on c4, that's what happens in the game. Bishop takes on c4. Give me a second, I'm gonna stop the video for a sec. Okay, sorry, I had to stop the video for a second. There was a vendor on the street, and I think he was picking up on the microphone. Okay, so we get these moves, just to recap. b4, b3, bishop to b5, they take the pawn. Bishop takes on c4, okay, bishop to c2, and it's terrible position for white, right? You can tell if all of your pieces are on this rank, it's completely losing for white. Now, you might be wondering, can we take this knight? Yeah, it's not the best move. We can just take here. It's still fine. It keeps the advantage. Bishop takes on e2. But the best move is just to trade bishops, right? You just want to trade bishops because later you're pushing this pawn. This is an open file for the rook anyway. The other bishop can also be active here. So yeah, bishop to c3 was playing the game. B takes on c3, knight to c1. And at this point, after rook to b8 check, white resign. White resign after this move because black has a mate in 7. So just as a sample line here, knight to b3, we're threatening to checkmate in the next move. So they have to take this bishop, keeping an eye on here. King c2, queen b2 check, king d1, queen takes on f2. Let's say they take the rook. This is checkmate, right? Okay, these are the results in the women's section. Bashali won her game. And now these are the standings in the open section. We had a lot of draws this round, except the game I just showed you. And I am also going to do a special video where I have a collection of those moments that were critical, maybe in terms of strategy. Some things have been surprising in this tournament that I haven't covered in my videos. But yeah, it's a lot of 8 games, right? 8 games per day, so it's a lot of things to cover. But okay, I will see you in the next one, and stay tuned. Take care.